It's one of our labels, and we are continuing our discussion on the human design profiles that we have looked into. We thought it was really interesting and quite accurate. Last time we talked about the general profile and the characteristics of them, and there was at least one part that I can see we can continue with here, which is the incarnation cross. Is that what it says for yours too?
Yeah.
Okay. So we can talk through that and then discuss anything that comes up as we talk about it. This is just another aspect of the human design profiles that describe both of us. And Derek, actually, would you like to start talking about your incarnation cross here, whatever it is?
Yeah, actually, well, so first of all, just a reminder, we got the same, what was it called? Type, projector type, are completely different lines. So whatever that means, I mean, I guess what I mean is it's like the type, for whatever reason, doesn't matter so much. It's the lines that matter more, or at least that they're more definitive of the personality of the person. So we have a 6-2 here. 6 was role model, I believe, hermit 2, and then 5-1, and I've completely forgot what mine was.
Heretic investigator.
Yeah, heretic investigator. It's a very odd combination when you hear them over and over again. Yeah, and up until this point, like I was actually really surprised at how accurate it was about my personality, or just things that I've noticed about myself, or stories of my past and things that I'm working on now, all kind of align with that. And even more so, the incarnation cross.
It says your incarnation cross represents the overarching theme and purpose of your life. So that's the background I can think of.
Right, but it's just I don't understand what's the cross about. Aside from they're giving us 2 numbers, and actually they're giving us 4 numbers. So I have 4 numbers here. I have 45/26, and then 36/6. So I've only read these like mine only reads one by one. So what I can say is this: it's like these there's numbers here. So I have 45/26, and these are called gates. Again, I don't know what the gates are. I just see them as entrances into your soul, or into your personality, or into your persona, or something, or doors, if you will. But I haven't actually looked up what the numbers are, because 45, 26, 36, and 6 are my numbers, but like I don't know how many numbers there are. I don't know if a low or a high number means something. And so what I'll be doing while we're going through this is looking for patterns, as I often do.
What I see us doing, I mean, I don't have much context about how these were done, and I'm doing a search right now. I'm looking it up just to get a little background, so I can talk about it a little later. But I suggest that you talk through the descriptions made, and then if you hear any like ways that it's actually accurate and examples, then we can start there.
Exactly. So my point really was just I was going to say I have incarnation cross, left angle cross of confrontation, and I read that and I said to myself, I don't understand what any of that means except for the word confrontation. That sort of stuck out like a sore thumb. So I was really curious immediately what that means, because frankly, I don't know. I don't know just reading that word. It sounds like it has a negative connotation to me. So anyway, this cross is about challenging established structures. Very, very INTJ, very me. So actually, I'm not sure what I want to do here, because last time we did kind of correlate this with MBTI, but for me, it's more fun to just equate this to me, and then like as a retrospective look at how that kind of matches with MBTI. So that's probably how I'll approach this. I don't know why I'm stuttering. Anyway, so challenging established structures, leading others through transformation. Now this touches base on what we talked about last time. It did mention that I was someone who leads other people, or rather aids other people in situations that they're having, as somewhat of a mentor, which was similar to, that was a similarity between mine and yours.
Yep.
Only yours is vastly different and probably more heavier on the mentoring side than mine probably is. Or at least that's how it feels to me, naturally. So gate 45 is my first gate, and it says gathering together. Okay, well, that in and of itself doesn't really mean much. leadership and resources. Okay, then I started to think like that makes sense. When I hear resources, I immediately think that's something I do. I'm looking at how to lead and how to use resources well. So let's see what it says. You have a natural authority over resources and leadership in groups. So the authority, this is a word that I actually had to sort of refamiliarize myself with in recent times, because authority to me often meant like, like police officers or people in the government, or just it actually almost had a negative connotation to me. However, it also sort of means having control over something, which I guess is the same thing. But what I mean is like authority over a topic, meaning I understand it well, and I also have a firm grasp of what it means, and I can probably articulate it to another human being in a way that it's understandable. So to me, that's what authority means. So that's kind of me giving it my own connotation. I'm not even quite sure what the denotation is for that in this sense. So you have natural authority over resources and leadership in groups. What I'd like to actually do now, this just popped up on my head. I'd like to ask you if you noticed that in me, and so we can do that one by one.
Exactly. Actually, perfect.
I thought you were thinking that.
I was thinking that because I've seen that for sure. Authority over resources and leadership in groups. So we've been working together right now, and generally when it comes to resources, I have deferred authority to Derek for those things. When it comes to timelines, when it comes to what time we should do what, we're scheduling these meetups. And I said, Derek, when would you like to do them? And Derek has an opinion about when to do them. I've also deferred just management of the finances of what we're doing over to Derek as well. And it seems to be a natural role assignment for you, and it's something that I am less naturally willing to work on. So that's what I see there. One.
Yeah.
I have other things.
I will speak to one thing you mentioned. I kind of forgot already. Like you mentioned having an opinion.
Yeah.
On something. It's more than that. I'm sure you've noticed. It's of course it's my opinion, but what you probably mean is I don't just choose a time that fits me best. I try to look at every single variable that I have available to me and decide what's best for everybody. So in our situation, it's like, when does Derek usually have lunch? When does James usually have lunch? Does James work out, or does James have another schedule? What days typically work for us, etc., etc. So all of those things are being calculated in my head, and then I will suggest, usually down to one specific time that I feel is optimal for everyone, and then I'll ask, obviously. And so that's me serving my opinion. Is that kind of what you meant, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've also noticed that the thought process you go through when you are scheduling our meetups is also making that same going through that same thought process of like, okay, people would prefer this time slot or this time slot based on the data that we've gotten, the way that people have attended so far. This is a prime time slot for us all being able to meet at the same time. These are thought processes that I personally found that I do not naturally think about, and I don't have an opinion about these things. So I've deferred to you for those. I've also noticed, if I can talk about the other two things that are set at the top of the profile, challenging established structures. I've seen you do that quite a few times already. We've known each other for a few months here, and there was a certain meetup that wanted to have a certain structure with how rotating through groups and stuff, and you did not want to do that. You would rather work on it your own way, which is, I see almost as like, that is what is authentic to you, and you wanted to challenge their structure. And yeah, so that's one, challenging established structures. And then leading others through transformation. I see you already, there are certain things I feel that you have realized perhaps about yourself, and then you have turned and seen other people that could see, they could open up the way that they see the world if they only understood certain things, perhaps about themselves. And so you have taken it upon yourself to lead them through seeing those things. I think people that you see very often where you live, is that correct?
Yeah, just throughout time, there are people that I come in, our paths cross more often than other people, and those people I tend to, I generally, when I'm with people, I'm, I'm really paying attention to them quite deeply. Um, and so the more often I'm with someone, the more things I'll notice, more patterns I'll notice, or the more I'll learn about them. They'll from through their behavior, what they talk about, as in what they're interested in, how they're feeling, but also what happened to them and how they describe what happened to them. Just if somebody telling me how their day went, someone could be describing the same day 10 different ways, and so even though the experience is the same, it's how they perceive it that makes the difference. And so I take those perceptions and I add them all together, and I start to notice patterns that are not good, or I hear them literally say to me, "This just isn't working for me," or just like they're complaining or whatever. And so I'm like, well, if you change things in such a way, or the way you think, or the way you do something, which is that transformation, well, that's not the transformation, but that's part of it. It's like if you do these things, then you basically turn into the person you want to be, or the person that is you're desiring to be, or that you're meant to be.
Mhm.
So yeah.
And I after you've described a few experiences, I see, perhaps if you can tell me, that this is a recurring pattern in your life where people come to you with a certain question or a problem, and then you take on the role of this, like, projector in this system of a human design, which is you are a guide. You see the vision for the person, and you provide that
Yeah,
service.
it's almost like being in a pitch black room, and I'm holding a flashlight, and I'm pointing the flashlight in the direction they need to go.
Mhm.
Yeah, this happens often. I didn't notice it for probably the first half or more of my life. I almost thought it was something I liked doing. I thought, oh, for some reason I seem to really like helping people through their problems, and I realized I'm not actively seeking out these people. In fact, it was contrary to that. It was quite the opposite. They were coming to me one way or another, and yeah, when I finally realized that, I thought, oh, okay. Still didn't really know why. I just thought, well, I'm just easy to talk to or something. But um, really doing some deep evaluation of myself, I realized, no, I mean, this is something I'm good at. I offer value. I offer information. I offer just the insight. It's not the value of information. It's just the way I'm able to perceive their situation is a way that they are not, for whatever reason, capable of. They might be physically capable, but just not mentally at that place in their life, or just, it's help, right?
Yeah.
So it's like holding someone's hand across the street. They want to get across the street. They know where they're going. They just might not know how to get there, and so that seems to be the case a lot of the time.
And that's where you slot in. You're the how. You're the
Yeah, the how. Yep. Or sometimes the what. They don't know what they need. They're just like, man, something's like, they don't say these words precisely, but like the gist of it is, there's something missing here, or there's too much of something here. I don't know what it is, and so I also seem to be very good at pinpointing those things.
Okay.
Yeah, or narrowing them down.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right. So that was the first gate 45. It's called Gathering Together, Leadership and Resources. Next one is gate 26, Ego Manipulation. Okay, those two words are ambiguous to me at first. So influence and persuasion. Okay, now I'm starting to understand manipulation probably of someone else, not so much myself.
Mhm.
You can sell ideas or influence others easily when aligned.
Mhm.
Now, when aligned, that's the key phrase here, because I was thinking, sell ideas, sure, influence others, yeah, and manipulation is a word that people often use in a negative way. But I don't think that's what it means here. I hope it doesn't mean that, and I doubt it does. So selling ideas, sure, it's neutral. It could be one way or another. I mean, how I decide to sell said ideas, and to whom, and what those ideas are, whether they're have good intentions or not, is what I'm talking about here. But anyway, so sell ideas and influence others easily when aligned. And I think what they mean by aligned here, though, is like, I can't sell. I'm not to the wrong. Like, what I mean, it's like we mentioned earlier about being invited. That I kind of find awkward for me. I don't quite understand it, the invitation, but this makes more sense. I think it's just saying, like, I'm not going to be able to sell James on, I don't know, what's something you don't need at all. just something he doesn't need or want. It's just not meant for him. So like it's just there's no point. It's an act in futility.
Yeah.
That's how I interpret this.
I also see that this aligns somewhat with asking for the invitation, because there are times when I don't know what direction to go, and then I ask Derek, and Derek has a strong opinion, and to me that I see that in this gate here, which is like, hey, I see this is the way we should go, and I'm like, oh yeah, exactly, great.
But again, when aligned, so I think if it's not warranted or not solicited, then it's probably going to be you're going to get pushback, especially from someone who doesn't want to hear your opinion. That happens a lot too.
And
yeah,
also,
that's actually when I get pushed. Like I'll say my opinion. I didn't ask you.
yeah, and there's also the I mean, I think you're actually quite aware when you don't really care, and then you just won't say anything, and so you will only speak when you care. And I asked, and that's a perfect lineup.
Yeah, I think so. All right, so now again, that was 45-26. Those are paired together for some reason. So let's maybe let that kind of sit in the subconscious. We'll think, why does gathering together and ego manipulation, why are they together? It'll probably be more clear once we get to the next two. Gate 36, crisis and change. Okay, again, those words don't really mean much by themselves, or they mean a lot of things. Emotional experience. Okay, this is interesting. You navigate chaos well and guide others through challenges. Now I see a loop back already to the what we were talking about earlier. Actually, I guess we talked. Oh, at the top, I think it was leading others through transformation. So that's probably where that's connecting here. Navigate chaos well. So the way I understand this is those situations where literally what it means, like things are chaotic, things are crazy, and I'm able to just keep a cool head, sort things out while other people maybe are just freaking out. Whether it's an actual thing going on in the room or not, it could just be a mental thing. It could be just like, let's say we're in a meeting and people are talking over each other, and we're supposed to be talking about this thing and everybody's doing this, and then next thing you know we're doing that, and like I can be just like, guys, all right, things are getting out of hand here. This is how we should handle this stuff, and let's get back on track. And so that's kind of creating order from chaos, perhaps. But the navigation, I don't know if it's creating order that I'm good at, but the navigation is something I do see in myself. And guiding others through challenges, we sort of touched base with this. I guess I think there's more to that. I think this challenges is different than like a transformation, but like if someone's asking me for help, that's not necessarily a guide through challenges. Well, maybe it is. How do you see this? Because like crisis and change, I wonder if they're talking, like, is this going hand in hand? Like, is this chaos and a challenge?
I mean, I've heard you say that when things get chaotic, you tend to get logical and like detached, and you know what to do. You know what we should do to handle this situation, and that's what I hear here.
Yeah, so I guess we don't really have many, if any, examples of this yet, so that's probably why it's a bit, I mean, between you and myself. And yeah, it's actually the detachment that's important here, because I think that's the thing. People aren't detached, so they're immediately having an emotional reaction to something, or even thinking. I mean, they could be still attached and still be in their head. Whereas I'm like, okay, let's take the Derek out of the equation here and just look at the situation itself and navigate through that. Because that's otherwise I don't feel there's really a better way to do that. Yeah. That being said, that was gate 36, whatever that number means. Gate 6 is the last one. Friction and emotional boundaries. Okay. Setting limits. You're meant to set strong, energetic, and emotional boundaries. Okay, so it's weird that they use "you're meant to." I thought that was weird, but this is something I do. I set strong emotional boundaries. I'll start there. Strong emotional boundaries. I understand this to mean that I don't know, like, unless I'm really close to somebody, I'm not really sharing my emotions with them. I'm not really telling them how I feel outside of like, I'll say I don't like something or I like something. I don't say I like something very often, but that's also something I keep kind of reserved. But like when it's something I don't want, like I'm easily pushing that away, but I'm not really sharing at all how I feel emotionally. So those are the emotional boundaries. Now, strong energetic boundaries. I'm not quite sure what that means. I was thinking it had something to do with me not being a very extroverted person, and then I say to people, look, I'm only gonna do this much, and then I'm gone. I don't know what this really means. Do you have an interpretation of this?
Well, the one connection I can make is to make the MBTI reference. I see extroverted thinking doing this often. I feel almost extroverted thinking says, who is this person to me? Okay, I will interact with them with that boundary so that things don't get too messy here. I will treat the person like an acquaintance. I'll treat this person like a friend. This person, I've signed this contract with them, so I will interact with them with that relationship. And so that things stay clean here, we will make sure that these interactions are established between us with these rules. I, does that sound authentic to you? And does that align with this boundaries thing?
Yeah, that sounds authentic. As far as like assigning a meaning to energy here, I suppose you're saying, or what we're saying is that the energy with which I meet someone is dependent upon who they are, and so they get a
Yes.
different type of energy from me,
Mhm.
or behavior, maybe perhaps is a better word than energy. So I would have to look into this, but that is something I do. So sure. Now the word friction is mentioned here, but I don't necessarily see friction in the description. So I'm wondering what that means. I mean, I kind of get it. If some, like for example, one thing I really do is if I don't get along with someone, there's gonna be friction. Like it just happens. If we're being sort of like, if we're forcing the conversation, let's call it, like one person or the other, whether it's the other person coming, like you know me, if someone tries to make me do something, what do you think my reaction is going to be? It's just like no, or I will not treat the person well.
Yeah.
So I'm just assuming that's what it means. So here it just says together this means you are a transformational leader who helps others reorganize their resources, strategies, and mindsets. Actually, I want to address this first sentence. So yes, we've talked about being a leader, transformation, all that stuff, reorganizing other people's resources and strategies. So that's actually something I've been trying to do more recently. So yeah, I've talked people through the problems, but I'm talking like I want to do this more on a professional level. I guess is what I mean. I want to actually make this something I'm offering to more people, not just people that are close to me. So I'm actually trying to come up with examples of the ways I have approached things in the past strategically, and how I've used my own resources and what my mindset was. Share that with other people so that they can sort of get something from that without me having to meet people one on one. So I'm talking about something that's a little bit more broad based. Of course, then depending on how the product line goes, like there could be a more one-on-one aligned product that's created from this. But my point just is this, since I have this ability, and I feel like if you have an ability, maybe use it for something bigger. And yeah, I just see myself doing that. But at the same time, in my own kind of my company, etc., I'm doing the same thing. I'm a leader. I will be doing the same stuff with you and with all the people we come into contact with. And I've already done it even yesterday at the meetup. There was somebody who came in, wanted to talk about something they're doing. And I immediately was like coming up with ways to do it better, or just, feeding all the information into my head and just like offering ideas right away. So that's just something I feel I do quite naturally. Second sentence, however, confrontation is part of your path and you may stir up strong reactions in others. This is just me not. The way I talk to people, if they are an emotional type of person, they're going to take it the wrong way, and that's a two-way street. So when I say take it the wrong way, I'm talking as a receiver, but it's also on me to sort of figure out a way to sort of finesse the way I say things and learn how to do that. So I'm not putting all so the just friction exists. I'm just saying it's just a two-way street where like both sides can be working consciously, or can be aware of each other, and then that could go better. Sure.
I can share two observations I made there. One is I think your natural way of communication generally is far more blunt than I would speak, and you often will just say exactly what you want to say like that, and I think that's very natural for you, and I'll just say it like that.
Yeah.
Second is, I think our interaction generally has been one of almost you will question and you will introduce some disagreement that leads me to have to firm up what I just said. So it's almost like an irritant, or like a destructive blow has been introduced to the conversation, which requires me to solidify, which requires me to um, provide evidence and things like this. So I think I see almost like a destructive force creating a reactive reinforcement. We've created a reactive, like the destruction causes growth.
Yeah, I'm picturing yin yang right now, because it sounds, at first it sounds quite horrible, but I'm thinking, is it? I don't know, because like I will see it from my point of view. Those words sound bad, but it's like but the way you say the second part, it's like it's destructive, but it's destructive because it's like, you know, we've talked about this before. Like sometimes things have to be broken down in order to be put back together again. They put back together. Well, we haven't said this exactly, but like put back together again, they're better than what they were before. Or some people say you're stronger than you were before. And I do the same thing when I talk to people through their problems. You know, I will break them down sometimes. I'll have them even upset with me, but then they come back stronger than ever, and that means I've done what I meant to do.
Mhm.
Yeah. When you talk about the bluntness, this is like I don't really notice it, and that's the problem. And these days I'm trying to fix it, but actually I don't like it. It's actually, first of all, it's obviously not authentic, but I'm not doing it right anyway, and I find like it's very annoying, like to try to soften what I'm saying, because then I don't know what I'm saying anymore.
Yeah.
And so I'm not really quite sure what I'm meant to do there. So I'm kind of just deciding what's best there. I did have one more thing to say, but I forgot what it was. And then the other way around, it's like when someone speaks to me indirectly, I get irritated. And I think that's kind of what you're also talking about. Like when someone says something, they have to sort of explain what they mean, or just like if it's too roundabout, like I'm just like, I break it down, because I'm like, honestly, I don't want to do any of that. I just want the person to say to me what they mean.
Yeah.
And I don't think I'm getting that from certain people, and that's what happens, I think, what you described.
Yeah, and I looking back, and I don't know if I can trace it myself, but I know I can feel, looking back, it was those destructive conversations we've had where like it was cutting away, like in lack of clarity perhaps, that allowed us to get to where we are right now. So and an analogy, a way I can think of it, is almost like America's Got Talent, or American Idol, where Simon Cowell will just say it how it is. He says, you know, you were terrible. I'm just gonna say that you probably shouldn't sing because blah 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 blah. And perhaps that's exactly what that person needed to hear. It's not nice, but it will give them some kind of material they need to move forward in their life.
Yeah, and that's why it was fascinating. I didn't really watch the show, but I know that when it first came out, people hated him. I think they love him now, right? Or maybe they don't.
It's become his brand.
It's his brand.
He's like me.
Yeah, so maybe it's just It's just been so long, at this point, and then it just becomes a meme. And I remember thinking that, why don't more people talk that way? Or like, I mean, I get how it can come out. Even to me, I'm like, ooh, that was a bit terse. But like, I was like, yeah, isn't that what people need? I mean, especially growing up, like I started out in a time period where things were still like I don't know. I just noticed, especially in the 90s, 2000s, as we progress, like things are getting softer and softer, and everything is positive. And I'm using quotes because it's not really, or just like over bloated, or everybody's special, everybody's unique, everybody gets a participation trophy, this type of stuff. And I think that sort of goes against everything I'm about too. And like that's what I mean. It's just like, if you do well, I will say it. If you do poorly, I will say it. If the table is this color, I'm going to say it's that color. I'm not going to just, if I know somebody has a problem with tables, I'm like, well, you know, like let's focus on something else. You know, like I don't do that. I just don't. I don't, and I don't. I know, like I understand how that could be uncomfortable for people, and I just like it's uncomfortable for me for the opposite to happen. It's just the understanding again is what's important. Understanding that there are different types of people, and just taking deep breaths and maybe just limiting your time with certain types of people, or whatever. I mean, there's a lot of ways to handle this rather than conflict, friction, creating more friction, firefight, adding fire to fire, that type of stuff. I just think that's is avoidable when you understand people. Simon Cowell, ENTJ, by the way.
Uh-huh.
So,
Yo, what's up?
of course,
Sounds good.
speaks with
Sounds
T, right?
And I almost analogize it to like going to the surgeon. You don't go to the surgeon for them to treat you softly and like talk around the problem. They're gonna just get a knife out and cut it exactly where you need to cut.
Yeah, and we're not just talking about the problem. They're not going to cut like around. They're going to cut the problem out. Like you don't want them cutting out extra stuff, right? Or just like, well, this is the general area where I think you're sick, so let's explore, or let's just take it all out. Yeah, exactly. I like that. So I mean, that basically wraps up my channels.